Hello, I hope that you are doing great. In this video, basically what we are going to do is to take information from the form that the user have introduced, and we are going to use all that information to work out the carbon emissions. Okay? Then let's move on. We are here in the Visual Studio, and the first thing that I would like to do, as usual, is to start by seeing in real life what we are going to do in this particular video. Here we have the virtual environment, and then if I type Python application, and if I open it, I go to the Carbon app, and here basically what we can do in this particular video is to introduce just a number of kilometers. Okay, and we submit it. And basically we don't have anything here. And this is what we are going to do in this video, is to introduce some changes in the routes file to work out the carbon emissions by using the methodology that you have developed during the course. Okay, then let's move on. We need only to open the routes file, and here basically we are going to be inside the form, and we have to be inside the if form is validated, and basically we have to introduce different steps. Okay, the first thing that we need is we have to create a variable that is bus kilometers, and in this variable we are going to store the information that the user passed from in the form, kilometers. We are going to take the data. This is basically what we are doing there, is basically take the information that the user have introduced it and store it in the variable that is named bus kilometers. The second thing is we also need the type of fuel that the user is introducing, and again we are going to take that information from the form, and we are going to store it in a variable that is called bus type. And now we use these two sets of information basically to work out the carbon emissions. And to do this is very easy. If bus type is equal to bus diesel, we are going to multiply the kilometers for the coefficient that we are going to the methodology basically that we have introduced, and then we are going to have the carbon emissions for the bus that is equal to float, is equal to a float number, is bus kilometers multiplied by a constant that is 0.10231. Okay, if bus type is equal to bus CNG, then we are going to work out the carbon emissions. Is going to be equal to, it's going to be another float number in which multiply the bus kilometers for a different coefficient that is 0.08. If bus type equal to bus petrol, then we calculate the carbon emissions. It's a float number, bus kilometers multiplied by 0.10231, else multiply by 0. Okay, this is the formula that we have introduced. Then the next step is basically we have to introduce we don't need this step, but I want to introduce this step because I don't want to have a very long float number. Then I only want to have 2 decimals, and then I introduce this because otherwise in the web page is a mess. If you have very long numbers, it's not, from a visual perspective, it's not very attractive. Then it's float. I introduce here some transformations. Okay, this is the first, and the last step basically is that we need to store that information again in the form because we want to disclose this information. Basically, the first thing that we have done is to take information from the form, and the last thing that we have to do is to store that information again in the form to disclose it in the web page. Form bus CO2 data, and basically in that we are going to store CO2 bus. Then we extract information and we pass the information again, and now we save it. And now if I go to the web page, if I go to the new entry, if I introduce here all the numbers again, I submit. Now in this field we have calculated the CO2. We have to introduce obviously the same methodology to work out the car and the plane and the ferry. Obviously I'm not going to do that in the video because that is totally useless. It's the same principles. Then if I go to the final carbon app in the GitHub account, and if I copy this information and then I go to my Visual Studio, and here instead of this route I paste the final code and I save it. And now if I go here again to my web page and I introduce a new entry, and I submit it, now we have all the calculations for every single type of transport. We have the kilometers and we have the carbon emissions. Okay, this concludes basically this video, in which basically what we have done is to take the information from the form, introduce some changes in the route, and work out the carbon emissions. This way of doing the things is not super efficient because we want to have the route as clean as possible. Then in the next video, basically what we are going to do is to create a new Python file in which basically we are going to create formulas to calculate all the carbon emissions, and we are going to introduce that that file in our code, and therefore our routes is going to be more efficient and more clean. Then I hope that you have enjoyed the video, and see you in the next video.